We're good.
Okay. So my name is Ming. Fargo and I are working on BF Cache in Tokyo, and so I'm gonna present the pending request API. So actually, we have been working on this in the past year, but it was called pending beacon. But in response to recent discussions, we want to provide an alternative API. Anyway, the motivation is that we would like to provide a reliable way for sending requests on page, and the current mechanism require user to somehow register on one of the visibility change event listener or other page lifecycle event listener, along with either send beacon or fetch keep alive. But this actually doesn't, it's not quite reliable, and we think that we can provide an API that the browser handle this sending behavior. And the concrete requirements are basically, we would like to allow user delay request sending until page discard, either at the page unloading or BF cache eviction. And we would like to provide a timeout to allow customized early sending, because it's possible that a page is cached for a very long time. And this request also need to be kept alive until it's finished. And potentially we want that this request can be updated before it's actually sending out. So here is the proposed API shape. It's basically a subclass of the fetch request object. We will only like to provide limit this pending request object to. We only want to allow a subset of the original request field to be updatable here. And there are some new fields. The important one is the pending state. It tells that if this pending request object is still pending to send, or if the browser has sent the request out, this field will become false. Or if the request has failed, it will also be false. And we would also like to provide a send now method. Calling this method will transform the pending request object into a regular fetch request object. And there is a send after being background timeout. This, as mentioned, if setting this timeout, it will allow a browser to send this earlier when entering the hidden visibility state. And with the pending request, user will be able to update the headers or URL or body of this request.
Sorry, Minging, I just want to interrupt and just say one thing, just so that people aren't might be confused. Like, this API is very similar to what we had been proposing before, which were the pending beacon things that you would create. So we've moved away from creating an object that manages the whole thing to creating a request that goes into fetch. So it's, if you're thinking this sounds familiar, it is, but it's not. That's the big difference between what we did before and what we're coming back with.
Sorry, I forgot to mention. It was previously a group of new class we proposed, but now it's a subclass of the request object.
The explainer still explains the original one. Actually, this is all pretty recent. So okay, I'll mute again.
Okay. And specifically, the pending request object in the constructor, it takes a pending request init. We only want to allow customizing these fields. For all the other fields like keep alive, or we will underlying issue enforcing other request fields. Yeah, like methods, headers, body, signals. These are configurable. So I'm going to some examples here. The first one, if you want to queue a request to be sent on page discuss, you can just create a new pending request object and just call the fetch API. And know that the promise may never resolve, as the page, if you keep opening a page here, then it won't be sent out. And it's same for the post request. You can just feed the pending request object into fetch. And other operation here is that if you change your mind, you can call send now on the pending request object, and after calling send now, fetch should actually send out the request. And if the request is still pending, then the pending request support updating its payload by just using body field. Yeah, it can also update its URL or headers. And if user want to abort the request, you can use the signal and abort controller to cancel the pending request. As for the background timeout, setting it a value will basically accelerate the sendings. After calling fetch beacon this line, and next time the page enters the hidden visibility state, plus around 1 minute, the browser should kick off the actual sending process. Yeah. And here is a more concrete example. First, we create a get pending request and queue it into a browser. And we may collect some data and we check if the request is still pending. If so, we update the data into this pending request URL. And if it's not pending, which means the request might have been sent out, then we will need to create another new pending request and queue it with the fetch API. And at the end, we can also ask browser to send it out immediately. Any questions so far? Or so we still yeah.
No,
go ahead.
let's wait with questions till the end. That's
okay. Anyway, first we want to get feedback on the API ship and hopefully get agreements on this to unblock our further like either implementation or launching. So yeah, I'm not sure if the WebKit folks are here or not. But,
yeah, so let me stop recording and we can move on to the questions phase.